Hi, everyone. We are so excited to be back for our second September Summit. I'm Jordan DAKIN, Beyond Type 1's Director of Programs, and I can't wait to hand you off to this amazing group we've got tonight. They'll be chatting all things food, culture, and diabetes. So as a reminder, those of you joining us both in the webinar and on Facebook Live, please feel free to ask questions for this group to answer. We'll definitely be able to talk through some later, especially further into the conversation. For now, I'm going to hand it off to Tiara, who will be moderating. So feel free to take it away, Tiara.
Thanks, Jordan. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to September Summits. We're here on behalf of Beyond Type 1 to talk about food, culture, and diabetes. And we are so excited to get started tonight. But before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsors. September Summits is presented by the JDRF and Beyond Type 1 Alliance and made possible with support from OneDrop, Roche Diabetes Care, and Xeris Pharmaceuticals. I'm Tiara Smith, and I am the project manager of Beyond Type 2, and I also live with diabetes. I was misdiagnosed with diabetes in 2017, but later found out that I have ladder diabetes, which is a form of type 1. And I am also here and joined by some amazing panelists, all of whom you probably recognize in the diabetes community, some who are great cooks, some who work with people with diabetes, and some who just have some amazing, interesting cultural backgrounds who we'll be learning about tonight. And I would love to start with my panelists, Lorena DRAGO. Lorena, please introduce yourself to our community.
Hello, I'm Lorena DRAGO. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. I have a private practice. I'm also an author, a speaker, and I focus on diabetes education and cultural competency.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mila Clark Buckley. I write the blog, The Hangry Woman, so all about food all the time. I'm also the author of the Diabetes Food Journal, and I love talking about food, so I'm really excited for our panel tonight. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in August of 2016, but later found out in August of this year that I actually have LADA, so that's a really interesting part of our conversation tonight, too.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eritrea Musakan. I have type 1 diabetes, and I was diagnosed in 2001. I'm a content creator over at Diabetics Doing Things, and I am extremely multicultural. My dad is from a really small place in East Africa called Eritrea. That's why my name is Eritrea, and it's across the Red Sea from Saudi Arabia. So our family is African Arab, and my mom is Mexican. So I speak English, Spanish, and Arabic.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic. I was diagnosed in 1998 with type 2 diabetes. I'm an author, speaker, cookbook writer, a chef living with type 2 diabetes. I have a podcast that I do with my son, Jason, called The Happy Diabetic Kitchen. And I'll be honest with you, I am so excited to be here tonight. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are excited to have all of you to talk about something that people with diabetes love to talk about, which is food. And I think we all have different backgrounds, so we can give different perspectives on how food has impacted our lives with diabetes, or in Lorena's case, how she works with people with diabetes. And with that said, let's start off with our first question. What do you love about food, and how has it shaped your life? And how has diabetes impacted what you eat, if at all? And let's start with Mila with that question.
I think food for me is just like a really fun way to be experimental. It's the way to nourish your body and to just kind of show love to people. I think that's what I always love about food and cooking is I get to use like my creativity in the kitchen to get people to explore new things. Mainly my husband, I experiment with a lot of recipes on him. And he is definitely a picky eater. So he's a great person to kind of test things out with. But I think overall, like food is like very central to my life. It always has been. My family is Jamaican. And so like I think like a lot of families, all of our holidays and all of our gatherings really center around food. And so getting diagnosed with diabetes really changed a lot of the ways that I looked at food and thought about food and kind of like what I decided to eat. And so I think having like a new perspective about what food means to me and how I, measure my blood sugar with it, and kind of figuring out like how I can take care of my overall health. I think that's been a really interesting journey for me with diabetes, for sure.
How about you, Eritrea?
Kind of piggyback on what Mila said. I mean, in all of my cultures, food is so central. I mean, it's when you get together to express love with your family, not just like once a year, but all of the time. It's when your family would stop whatever everybody was doing to get together and just have a meal. So I think it's always been a really central part of me and my life. Also, like, food is amazing. So I definitely do enjoy that part of being so multicultural, because I get to eat all kinds of amazing food from all kinds of amazing places.
And Robert, why do you love food, and how has diabetes impacted how and what you eat?
I just feel so good when I eat healthy. And so what I try to do is take ordinary ingredients and turn them into something extraordinary. So less sugar, less fat, less salt, more herbs and spices, fresh vegetables, lean proteins, and just have fun experimenting with flavor combinations that just make food pop. It tastes really good. I mean, listen, I think food is just so important in someone's diet and their cultural background, that for me, food is just special. It's personal, and it's comforting. So for me, it's all about delicious food from ordinary ingredients turned into something extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Lorena, even though you don't have diabetes, you are a nutritionist. So how
Yes.
has food impacted your life?
Well, first of all, I love everything about food, from the most basic and primal aspects of foods, which is the nourishment, survival, to, I would say, to the most hedonistic aspect of good food, which is the aroma, the taste, and just the pleasure of good eating.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
that love connected me to nutrition, because I loved food. And also it connects me to where I'm from. I am Colombian, and I am from the Caribbean coast of Colombia. So food is about history, it's about geography, and people. It connects us as a culture and who I am. So our foods, at least in that part of Colombia, the history comes from Spain and Portugal. We have Middle Eastern influence. We also have African influence and indigenous influence. So all that, it's part of who I am as a person, and also as a nutritionist.
Food brings people together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, like, for me as a person with diabetes, or even just as a person, I agree with everything that all of you said. I mean, like Mila, I also have like Jamaican in my family, and I also have a Southern heritage from South Carolina. So I feel pretty blessed to be enriched in these rich cultures that have such just amazing food, but also have a deep appreciation from where food comes. So, I've learned how to garden from both my mother and my grandfather. So just learning how food comes in and how it makes me feel. I love healthy food because I love the way it makes me feel inside. To me, like, that's how it's impacted my life with diabetes as well. And speaking of culture, let's talk about like the things that make our cultural foods just so great, and how we try to work that into our diabetes management. And for that, I'll start with Eritrea.
So I have type 1 diabetes, but I also have celiac disease. So I'm allergic to gluten. And lucky for me, in the Mexican culture, we eat a lot of corn tortillas. So I eat still typically gluten-free culturally, and I get to enjoy all the same foods that I typically would want to eat. There are some things that I have to exclude. Like, okay, if I was to eat Ethiopian food, which is Eritrean food, I wouldn't necessarily be able to eat injera because it is so starchy and full of flour, and I would just be sick. So, but if I didn't have celiac disease, I would just adjust and take carbs and take insulin for that on the usual. For me, it's a little different because I have celiac, so it's hard sometimes. But most of the time I find myself still being able to participate in all of my cultural events and all of my cultural food and really enjoying it. There's just certain things I have to like cut out once in a while. I just replace it with other stuff. Like if I can't have pita bread, I'll have a slice of a bell pepper with the hummus. You know what I mean? You just replace it kind of to make it work. That's how
that's awesome that you're able to make those substitutions, but yet still find joy and, you know, in your roots like that. And I would love to hear from anyone else with this question. You know, how do you still enjoy the foods of your culture, living with diabetes or working with people with diabetes?
So I grew up in a Jewish home. So there was a very diverse culture there of all kinds of interesting foods. And so for me, it's just always been so fun. And I also live in the Midwest. So here in the Midwest, we have lots of farm and lots of homegrown and lots of farmer markets and lots of small crop farmers doing some amazing things with heirloom tomatoes. So I'm fortunate because in my neck of the woods, we have some of the most amazing vegetables ever. And I just infuse those into my cooking.
I think for me, kind of piggybacking on both of what you were saying, Jamaican food is really interesting because it uses a lot of healthy methods of cooking. So it uses a lot of braising and a lot of spices and grilling. And so I never really feel like I'm missing out. Like, I think I can't have, you know, like the portions are big because people love you and they want to give you as much food as possible. But, you know, instead of eating like an entire, like, you know, 3 cups of rice with my jerk chicken or with my oxtail, like I kind of know that I have to scale it back and I have to understand like how some of those portions can affect my blood sugar. So for me, it was kind of looking at, instead of like restricting foods or saying like, I can't have this or I can't eat this, it was like, how can I make my plate look a little different so that my blood sugar can adapt to what I still love and I can still enjoy those things. I also live in Houston, which is like one of the most culturally diverse cities in America. And I swear I can like walk outside of my house and literally have like any kind of cuisine that I would ever want anywhere, which is awesome, but it's also hard because it's like there are so many different cultures that I want to explore and so many different foods that I want to explore. And I kind of have to look at like, how is this going to impact my blood sugar and how can I still enjoy these meals, but also kind of figure out a way to like game the system for myself so I can enjoy it, but also make sure that my blood sugars stay where I want them.
I think one thing I wanted to add, Tiara, is from at least from the nutritionist or health professional, is I work with a lot of Latinos, and many times I always hear, oh, but Latinos eat so many starchy foods, and it's going to be so hard for them because they have diabetes, and I always say, wait a minute, you know, 45 to about 65% of all the nutrients that we eat come from carbohydrates. It doesn't matter whether we are Hispanic or not. That's just what we eat. 45 to 60% is usually carbohydrates. So it's always about a shift in just what Mila was saying about trying to say, okay, these are the foods that I eat, these are the foods that are traditional, but then let me just try and see and play with it to see how much, and just trying to shift a little bit instead of just shunning a group of foods because they are evil, or if they are traditional foods, oh, you have to stop eating that. And I think that sends a really negative message to people.
You know, a lot of things, I think, and I know we all can relate to this, that, you know, I call them, you know, Bill Polanski calls them the diabetic police, but it's those friends and family members who just don't know a lot, who say, oh, you know, you ate yourself into diabetes. You can't eat raspberries anymore because there's too much sugar. We're bombarded with those kinds of messages. And in reality, that is so far from the truth. And that's a message I try to get out to people, you know, everything in moderation, you know, and take baby steps when trying new foods. Try something different.
I wonder if that whole, you shouldn't eat this, you shouldn't eat that thing, if it's and I don't want to say if it's more of a type 2 thing, but I'm a type 1. I've been type 1 since I was 7 years old, 8 years old. And so I've never been, nobody's ever been like, you should, my mom, my brothers, my family, nobody, hey, no, don't eat that. It's
Mhm.
eat whatever, take your insulin. So I wonder if it's more of a stigma or something, people feel more comfortable saying it when I don't know.
I feel like I can kind of speak to that, just living in both worlds, because I think when I was diagnosed with type 2, like that was the common answer that I would get from people. Like I have this really interesting video about like mean comments people have left me about diabetes, and it's all about my weight, and it's all about, you look like this, so of course you have diabetes, and like you must have like hidden your Pepsi, you know, behind a label of water, and like that's why your blood sugar's high, and like really, really rude things like that.
Right.
And I even had like doctors that would question me, that would say, are you sure that you're eating the amount of carbs that I've set for you? Are you sure that you're doing the right things? And when I got my like LADA diagnosis, that conversation really shifted, and it was no longer like, you have done this to yourself. It was like, okay, well, there are some tools to help you, and here's how we're going to make sure that you manage your blood sugar and you can still enjoy what you love. And the conversation shifted completely away from kind of like the blame and the stigma, and relied more on like, here are the tools that can help you. And I, you know, like just thinking about it this past month, I've kind of been like, why is that? Like, why, when I had like the one thing on my chart, people said, this is your fault. Like, there's not anything out here to help you. You have to diet, exercise, and like, I'll see you in 3 months.
Yeah.
And then, you know, flipping the conversation to, oh no, like you don't have to struggle. Like, why are you spinning your wheels like this? And so I do think that it kind of sometimes can be like a just a perception thing in terms of the types. And I don't know, Robert, if you could speak to that too, as someone with type 2.
I can only speak to it because I experienced it as a type 2 diabetic from friends and family who knew nothing about the disease, and I didn't really know much about it either. So, you know, I mean, I was under the impression if I stopped eating cereal, heavy in carbohydrates, that might cure my diabetes, you know, way back in the day. But, you know, I've come a long way. I've educated myself. I've worked with amazing people like you, and have learned a lot about eating healthy. But people think it's that cheeseburger, you know, that did it.
Yeah. Or the assumption that if you are in a larger body, then you're doing things that are wrong, and this is the result of your recklessness, you know, let's say. And it's interesting because my husband lives in a larger body and he's very healthy. And people constantly ask me, but doesn't he have diabetes? And I said, no. Doesn't he have diabetes? No. So it's almost as if, well, you know, this too, you know, this is cause and effect. So many times it's just trying to navigate those questions and perceptions, unfortunately.
And as a type 2 like me, making the move to fast-acting insulin, I know many type 2s, when that happens, they're thinking, I'm a failure, I failed, it's all my fault, it's all my fault.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart.
We know it's not true. We know that that's not true.
Right.
You know, but that's kind of the stigma.
Yep.
Yeah, you're kind of told that. Like I was diagnosed when I was 26, and the first words out of my doctor's mouth, like when we discussed my test results, were like, you're ruining your body, and I want to put you on insulin immediately. And I said, no, I don't want to go on insulin. Like, I don't think I need to. I can exercise more. I can eat better. Like, I'm already doing that, but like, I'll do more. And he was like, basically, like, if you go on insulin, like, this is an indicator that you have not done the right things. And I carried that with me for a long time, because I thought, oh man, like, I'm going to ruin things if I have to go on insulin, or if I have to take oral medications to control diabetes. And it wasn't until I met people in like the diabetes online community, and they were like, that's not okay. Like, if that's what you have to do, it's about managing your blood sugar, and it doesn't matter how you do it. And I was like, it's so weird to know that, like, you know, a health professional can tell someone that. And I think many people kind of carry that feeling of shame around if they feel like they have to go on insulin, and they feel like, oh, I couldn't do it naturally, or I couldn't do it by myself. And it's such a shame because it's so helpful and it takes away the
Mm.
struggle, I think.
So confusing to me why one diagnosis is I'm sorry this happened to you, and then the other one is what did you do to yourself? Like that's it's mind-boggling right now. That's
Yeah, because that's the message that we hear. You know, we are constantly hearing, well, this is an autoimmune issue. Well, this is a lifestyle issue. So once you start telling people that this is a lifestyle issue, then that means that you have a poor lifestyle. Therefore, this is the effect.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think that blaming is just so common. And unfortunately, Mila, my heart breaks for you, but I have heard physicians tell that to the patients just before I see them or just before they're referred to me. And then I feel like I have to go into damage control and I have to say, you did not fail. Your pancreas has failed. Your body's doing something that wasn't supposed to do. And I always say, look, I'm wearing glasses because my eyes cannot do what they're supposed to do. So I need to have this to aid me. I didn't do anything wrong. Uh, but I think that once the damage is done, then it takes a lot to erase that and replace it with coherent and accurate information.
That is so true. When I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was definitely in denial, which I think is pretty normal for a lot of people. But I can remember I was kind of coming out of my denial and I was feeling like good about the fact that I have a new health plan and I'm moving forward. And I had a coworker when I made the announcement to some people, just kind of very, matter of factly that I have diabetes. I had a coworker say, "Oh, I knew it." I said, "You did? How did you know that?" "Well,
Wow.
look at you." Now, I'm not, I mean, I don't know. I definitely could lose 20 pounds. Let's just be honest about that. But, I thought to myself, wow, there's a lot of people that don't have the right information. And that's inspired me to learn the right information and kind of be an advocate to people living with type 2 diabetes,
Right.
to make a difference in their life, to show them that as a type 2 diabetic or a type 1 diabetic, you are probably healthier than most people living on the planet. So key in to your health and mental and physical health.
Absolutely. And, and I know when I was being treated as a type 2, my experiences are similar to Mila and Robert's. So I was put on insulin right away and I was given pamphlets like most people with type 2 are given. But at the time I was already studying nutrition. So to me, like the next question was, well, now what? But also if we're talking about it from a cultural perspective, when you're used to eating certain foods because they're from your cultural background, it's so important for nutritionists to be able to identify and meet you where you are and ask you, like, what are you used to eating and how can we continue to work these foods into your daily life while helping you reach whatever your glycemic goals are. And that was the kind of attention I never received. So let's say if I wanted to go to the Jamaican restaurant, there was no guidance on, okay, well, maybe I should eat some of, a small portion of like rice and peas, or maybe I should try to get jerk chicken breast instead of, dark meat. And I think that's important for all people with diabetes, especially people with type 2 diabetes, to receive that kind of care. But that kind of diabetes education just isn't there. And, with that said, with people trying to tell us, what to eat, now that all of you are sort of further into your own diabetes journeys, how do you respond to people trying to tell you what you should eat now?
I love on them. I mean, I try to just say, listen, my journey is my journey and I'm managing things. Let me help you understand why I'm about to eat this and why I can't eat this and how it works in my body. But some people are receptive to that, some people are not. But I don't get it very much anymore.
I definitely I definitely hit them with that. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Like I'm just like it's not your business, girl. But I don't think that I feel like 2020 is a little different. The way that society is, people aren't so bold to just be like,
Mhm.
what are you eating? What are you doing? Like people don't really do that to me anymore. Also, I'm a pump user, so like
Yeah.
what do you say to me, right? So I don't really deal with that as often. But if I did, I would just be like, don't worry about it, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like similar to Robert and Eritrea, it's like the don't worry about it, and also like trying to educate people who are willing to listen. Like there are going to be people who will just they will not care. Like you'll try and explain it and tell them, and they'll just be like, yeah, whatever. You have diabetes. You probably shouldn't do that anyway. And I think I face a lot of that on Instagram because I post recipes for both things that I cook, but things that I enjoy out. Like if I am invited to a restaurant or if I go out to eat, like I'll sometimes post a picture of something that I really liked and someone will be like, well, like that was a croissant and a croissant has like 900 grams of carbs. Like, why would you eat that?
Right.
And I have to explain, well, I accounted for this in my day, but also this is a small snippet of my life that you're seeing. You're not seeing like every single moment of every single meal that I have. This is one thing, and I am allowed to enjoy that one thing, and we're all allowed to enjoy our food. So I think I take that approach a lot to try and be as nice as I can to say like, get out of my business, and I'm gonna put good looking food all the time, but also like this is why, and people will ask questions too. Like sometimes somebody will see that kind of response and they'll DM me and they'll say, well, I really want to know more about this. Like, how did you fit it into your day? And what kinds of things are you doing to manage your blood sugar? And then there's like a really fun kind of deeper conversation there too. So I think that's kind of like the approach that I take with it.
That's good. I think that as a nutritionist, I seldom say to people that I'm a nutritionist, at least when I'm going out, because then people become they think that I'm the food police. So there's the food police on one hand, or people that ask me questions like a consultation. So that's a double-edged sword. But I just want to say something that to answer that question, I just want to add something funny. That one time I just posted on social media a meme, and I think it was like, eat whatever you want. And if someone tries to lecture you about your weight, eat them too. So, so it was a good way to just say, you know what, whether it's the weight or the blood sugar, I don't go around asking people, how many times have you exercised at least 30 minutes for the past 5 days, right? And then shame them because they're going to get cardiovascular disease because the last time they worked out was when they had to walk to the kitchen. So it's interesting how people want to know about these things about food and have that judgmental attitude, but there are other things as well. And we don't go around asking people, you know, how many times have they done exercise? Have they exercised?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't get that question anymore. I did in the beginning of my journey, but not so much anymore. Like I know I post food that I make, and I have a philosophy that I eat what I want, but I also know what works for me. And I know, like, I have a foundation of like portion sizes and learning how to measure and track my food. And also I keep watching my glucose levels. And if I know if I'm struggling with something, I have a support system to turn to. But also, like, I feel like telling people what they can and cannot eat, you know, some people actually internalize that, especially if you're newly diagnosed, and you never know what people are going through. Some people may have a tumultuous relationship with food. And, you know, that brings me to like this next question, which is having a good relationship with food and having a good mindset when making some choices. And Lorena, I would love to hear your perspective on how do you coach your patients on how to like improve their relationships with food.
Yeah, I ask questions instead of making assumptions. So some of the things that I do is that in the questionnaire before I see a patient, I ask them, what are some of the foods that you absolutely like or love? And then I also ask another question, which is, what are some of the foods that you have stopped eating or drinking since you were diagnosed with diabetes? And then those two questions tell me what are the people, what do they love to eat that they really need to include, and what are some of the things that maybe someone has told them this is not good for you and they have shunned that. And again, I have Hispanic patients from different parts, whether they're from Mexico, the Caribbean, or South America or Central America. So I allow them to tell me what are some of those foods. And many times, you don't know how many times I have had patients whose rice is their main staple, or if they're from Mexico or South or Central America, tortillas are part of their staple foods, and they have been told not to have rice, not to have tortillas. So that's the challenge. And again, I think that we were talking about the culture piece, which is what are some of the things when you're going to the Jamaican restaurant or you're going to your aunt's house and she's cooking Southern foods, that you wish that someone would have said to you, this is how you incorporate this. But if they don't know about your culture, they might just give you recommendations based on the average American. And those foods have never even crossed those lists that people receive. So they don't know what to do with them, but because they have never asked. So I just urge, if you are that person that comes from whatever culture you come with, just say, these are the foods that I enjoy. How can I fit them into my diabetes meal plan? So I urge the person with diabetes to make that. And I also urge all my colleagues to ask those questions. What do you enjoy, and what are the foods or drinks that you have stopped eating since you were diagnosed with diabetes? Because that's a telltale sign when they start telling you, I stopped eating rice, I stopped eating tortillas, I don't eat fruits anymore. And you would have never known that they were making all those unnecessary sacrifices.
Yeah. And I don't think most patients know either. Like, I don't think they walk into the nutritionist office, like, knowing that they can ask that question. Like, I certainly didn't. I thought, like, okay, I'll just like listen to what she tells me. And she told me eat kale and eggs and plant-based food. And I was like, cool, okay, but what about like,
and maybe you have never eaten kale and you don't want to try kale, you know? So yeah, we unfortunately we make a lot of assumptions because we are so pressed for times many times. And but I think that it is okay to just ask questions. That will give you more information than just assuming that this is the meal plan. And I think that most of us try, but I think that cultural competency is definitely an area that many health professionals really need to learn more about. They need to be more culturally aware. They need to understand that we are such a diverse community in so many different ways, and it is so important.
Lorena, thank you for saying meal plan and not diet.
Oh, I hate that word. No.
But meal plan is encouraging. It's a plan. It's a plan
yes.
of diet says this is going to be a failure. Diet is I hate that word.
Me too.
I'm doing one of these
Me
too. Connotation. It just sounds like this is going to suck. When meal plan is like, this is how you succeed or how you can plan to possibly succeed.
Right.
Yes. And we are actually having an amazing conversation because I didn't realize time was flying. So I want to direct us towards our chefs of the convo, Mila and Robert. And we always want to learn, like, how can we make healthy cooking easy? And this is definitely respective to both of your cultures, but what are some healthy tips and cooking tips that people can implement today, people who are watching this conversation?
I mean, for me, I shop on the outside aisles of the supermarket. I spend most of my budget on the outside aisles. The lean meats and proteins, the vegetables that are on the outside aisles, and try to avoid too much of the inside white food, products. At our house, what we like to do quite often is we pick a day of the week where we have some time and we'll do some bulk cooking. We'll grill 10 chicken breasts, slice them up, put them in small freezer bags and put them in the freezer. So if we're coming home at 5:30 and we're both racing in the house, we take out the chicken breasts that are already cooked, vegetables in the frying pan, saute a little olive oil, some fresh tomatoes, throw the chicken in, season it up, and you've got a quick, healthy meal.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things help me prepare very quickly.
For sure. And then what I would add to that is season your food. Like if you use herbs and spices and different types of like healthy fats, you can create like really delicious meals really simply without adding a lot of calories or carbohydrates or sugar.
Yeah.
And you can really vary things just with the different spices that you use.
Yeah.
A friend house sat for me the other day and she was laughing because she was like, I opened your pantry and the whole wall of your pantry is spices. And I was like, yeah, because one, I cook a lot, but two, like, why have boring food? Like eat fun food, and you can change it up and swap it out a lot just by changing up the herbs and spices that you use in your food.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Herbs and spices, there's no fat, there's no calories. It's fun and adventurous to cook with. It makes food taste amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not a chef, but I do want to say that like with Mexican food, we have like the same ingredients for every single meal. We're just preparing them and spicing them differently. Like every meal is like tomato, cebolla, onion, serrano peppers, tortilla. Now, how can I give it to you in a different way? Like, but just different spices. So Mila's right. You can transform dishes with the right spice.
You absolutely can. Good point.
I mean, since we're going to be talking about spices, like, can y'all talk about some must-haves everyone should have?
Yeah, so some of my staples that I just like, they're always out on my counter, like of course, like garlic and onion powder. I love gochujang. It's like a Korean like hot sauce kind of paste. It's delicious. It's so good. And like it can be spicy or not. So you get like really good peppery flavor from either. I love rosemary. Like rosemary is so like beautiful and fragrant and it goes well with so many different things. Basil is always great. The basics, salt and black pepper can also go really far. Yeah. And then I revealed this the other day that I am a hot sauce fan. I just bought like 20 bottles of mini Cholulas that I can stick in my purse because I love putting hot sauce on everything. So hot sauce is another one, like no matter the kind you use, Tabasco, Louisiana, Cholula, whatever. So I think hot sauce is always a good one to have too.
I always have tahini around. The tahini spice, the lime, citrusy, oh my gosh. Guacamole, chicken breast. I mean, I just use that on everything. Watermelon, it's amazing.
Wow. I have to add two that I really love, and that is cumin and smoked paprika. I love cumin, so I add cumin to almost everything.
I would say that if you're going to have to, okay, so mine's a little bit different. So ancho chile, you have to have it at your house. If you got ancho chile, there's another chile called chile de árbol, have to have it at your house. I'm a big fan of za'atar. I put za'atar on my gluten-free toast. I put za'atar on a lot of stuff. I also really like berbere. If you're East African, you know what berbere is. That is my jam. Like I'm so ethnic in my food. My husband is Pakistani, so like we eat ethnic every day. Those are the things that I have in my house all the time.
Yeah. And I would say for me, I am a huge curry girl. I love curry and coconut milk. So you would definitely catch me making some like curry shrimp with some mint garnish and maybe some coconut jasmine rice. I love right now Trader Joe's everything bagel seasoning, really good on some avocado toast with some tomatoes. I love warm spices, and like my favorite seasons coming up in fall. So it's going to be cumin, garam masala, and curry all season long. Which brings us to some audience questions. Are you guys ready to answer some questions from the audience?
Bring it on.
They're really loving this conversation. So
we're all
right.
and we're happy that they're with us.
Yes, and everyone who's been watching, thank you. Like we see your questions, and we're really happy that you're so engaged. This one is about frozen fruits and vegetables. So we have an audience member who asked, we always seem to focus on fresh, but not everybody can afford fresh, and also fresh spoils in a few days. So can you talk about the quality of frozen fruits and vegetables?
I love frozen.
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, I think people are freaked out by frozen vegetables, but they are delicious. They're frozen right near the fields where they're picked. It's a really great alternative to maybe not finding the kind of fresh vegetable you like, or the reason people say they're so expensive. Fresh vegetables, frozen is amazing.
Yeah. And not only that, but I'm also going to add, how many times have we bought vegetables thinking, oh, I'm going to have this, this, and that, let's say lettuce or something. Yep. And then what happens is that, maybe today I'm going to have asparagus, or I'm going to have something else. By the time you get back to that lettuce or spinach, now you have to throw some out. So the beauty of frozen vegetables is that you can use what you need at that moment and then put the rest away.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's a great, and it's also quick. Mm-hmm. Like Robert was talking about the chicken, and a great way to pair, let's say, chicken and spinach, and then you can just make like one meal, and you have your protein, and you have your vegetable as well.
A little garlic, a little oregano, some fresh lemon juice on top, some Mediterranean flavors. Love it.
Yeah, I have to add a hack here. So one of my lazy things to do during the weeknight is to take some like frozen vegetables, put it in a container if it's not in a steamable bag, throw in some water, some seasoning, cover it over, and then like microwave it for about 3 minutes, and then it steams up just fine. Don't even have to dirty up a dish. Like
exactly.
Yeah. I think frozen vegetables. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
I think frozen vegetables are probably my favorite. Like, also not just lazy nights, but like they work as a really great starter to meals. So like if you don't want to keep onions all the time around your house, you could use them, the frozen ones that you keep, and you can reuse them. Like you're not going to use the whole bag of onions right now. You can keep using the bag, right? So you could do that with a lot of different frozen vegetables to kind of build your meals, meal prep, or go that route. I mean, I use frozen vegetables all the time.
Yeah. And we have a question about fresh. So people want to know, like, how can you make fresh vegetables and fruits last as long as possible?
Freeze them.
All right, there you go.
Prep them and freeze them. Prep them in small portions.
You can put aluminum foil on top of the thingy of bananas, and that'll last longer. That's
what I like to do. I like to, if I know that there's like something I'm not going to use right away or within like a few days, I just chop it up and put it in the freezer. And that way, like it's already prepped, so it makes it easier, or at least I'm more likely to cook at home if it's already chopped and ready to go.
Correct.
We have a question about cultural competency. And Lorena, this is probably morely for you. What books do you recommend to gain more cultural competency?
Well, there is, it depends on what you're looking for. But there's a book that I co-authored and co-edited. It's called Cultural Food Practices, and that's mostly for health professionals, but it actually provides you with about 16 different cultures, ethnicities, etc. And what are some of the foods that from each culture, and then also how to make everything better. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that we always think that, ethnic foods might not be the healthiest, but there are many healthy foods within every culture, whatever your culture is. Mm-hmm. So that's one book. I wrote another book, Beyond Rice and Beans, the Caribbean Latino Guide to Eating Healthy with Diabetes. So if you are from the Caribbean, whether it's Cuba, Puerto Rico, or the Dominican Republic, it's in English and Spanish. And I just wanted to focus on those different cultures so that they wouldn't miss their favorite foods, but they were able to introduce them and also understand about their glycemic variations while still eating foods that are traditional. So those two are the ones that I have focused on to learn more about different foods and cultures.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lorena. And someone has a question about keto and intermittent fasting for people with type 1. And this is for Lorena and the chefs of the group. Do you support keto and intermittent fasting?
So I am going to say that I have lectured 3 times on intermittent fasting. So I feel that I can provide some sound background, and the answer is yes. There are some studies. There are not that many studies with intermittent fasting and people with diabetes, but there are about 4 to 5 solid studies that have shown that it could be equally as effective as a calorie restriction diet. Now, there are many different types of intermittent fasting, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but some of the most effective ones are the ones that are 5-2, which are 2 days. Calorie intake is reduced to about 400 to 600 per day. And then the other days, just eating the foods that you eat every day. Those have shown better results when it comes to weight management and or glycemic control. However, what I do want to say is that the number one issue that presented in these studies would be the risk for hypoglycemia. So it is very important that if you are choosing intermittent fasting, whether it's time feeding intervals, such as people starting to eat at 11 a.m. and then having their last meal at 7, or a window of 6 hours or 4 hours where you feed yourself, you have to plan carefully, not just your fasting, but your feasting time, so that you do not overdo it and then end up with hyperglycemia or with hypoglycemia. So I would say work in conjunction with a healthcare professional that understands intermittent fasting so that you can do it safely. And in terms of keto doesn't have to be unhealthy, like tons of bacon and other foods. But yes, it is doable. And again, I would say managing your blood glucose as much as you can while still maintaining your safety as number one.
Yes, thank you, Lorena. And speaking of hypoglycemia, I would love to know, like, what do you guys eat when it comes to low blood sugar? What foods do you like to eat to kind of raise your glucose back up to normal levels?
So I take the opportunity when I have hypos to eat something that I can never eat, and gummy bears are my hypo snack of choice. Because I can count them, I can measure them. I know how many it kind of takes me to get back into a normal range without like skyrocketing my blood sugar. But I know that if I eat them on a regular day, it's like not going to go well for me. So I keep some stashed away in like little bags in my kitchen, kind of counted out into like 15 to 20 grams of carbs. And they work really fast is the other thing that I love about them. And they're just like so delicious.
I like Skittles. I like candy, similar to Mila. I mean, if I'm gonna be low, it needs to be fun. So I'll eat Skittles. But we keep a lot of juice. I really like apple juice, you guys. Juicy juice is the best. So those juice box, I pretend I buy them for kids come over. Kids, they're for me. And so those are also really quick for, someone to grab for me if I don't want to get up, because I'm low.
And Robert, what do you like to snack on if your blood sugar drops low?
You know what? I like candy, right? Hard candy. Sometimes I'll use this product I found called SOS glucose. Yeah. It's a glucose powder, right? It just fast acting. Or I'll use tabs, sugar tabs. But if it comes down to it, I like Hershey's Kisses. I like chocolate.
I would like to say that I snack, but knowing myself, I don't. I just eat like a full meal, and I just enjoy it and move on with my life. When my sugar drops low.
I mean, my challenge is when I have a low blood sugar, I just start consuming food.
So
I start looking everywhere and anywhere where I could find something sweet and delicious.
And so we have another question, and this is about people's favorite appliances: air fryer, Instapot, or slow cooker.
I'm an Instapot guy. I love Instapot because I can make the most delicious soups in 15 minutes. I mean, it takes 3 hours for the thing to warm up, but I'm kidding. But you can make soup very quickly and really delicious.
Man, so I'm gonna veer off the path a little bit. I actually think my favorite appliance is my Vitamix.
Okay.
You can make pretty much anything in your Vitamix. You can make soup in it as well, which I thought was really insane. But I really love smoothie bowls, and being able to take like fresh fruit and make a little smoothie kind of snack out of it. And it's usually doesn't spike my blood sugar, and it's like a nice alternative for dessert sometimes. I use my Vitamix probably every single day in our kitchen. So
You need to write a Vitamix cookbook.
Wow.
I'd buy one of those.
You know what? I'll work on it for you, Robert, because I love my Vitamix. Like my husband thought I was crazy when I bought one. He was like, "You spent what on a blender?" And I was like, "No, but listen, like we can make everything." And so like every day I'm blending something or like making something, and he's like, "You did that in a blender?" And I'm like, "I know, right?"
I love my Ninja. I discovered 2 days ago, believe it or not, please don't judge me, 2 days ago that I could make rice using the pressure cooker. Now, if they're Hispanic individuals that are listening to them, you know that we make rice in a caldero, that aluminum. And Eritrea is going, yes, I know exactly what you mean. So I have always made rice using a caldero. My husband, who is American, Polish ancestry, he says, you have to try the Ninja. And I said, okay. And I did it, and I could not believe it. I felt like a traitor. But I went along with it, and my brown rice was cooked in such a short time. I was just impressed. I was impressed.
And it's so pillowy. It's like
yes. And one tip for everyone is, if you're cooking rice or vegetables and you want to add more flavor, but not like a lot of other things, use vegetable stock, or if you like chicken stock or beef stock, it's a great way to add flavor. So yeah, there goes my cooking tip.
Yeah, that's a great cooking tip. Thanks.
It's gonna have to be the slow cooker for me, man. There's something about slow cooked. Like you can't live in a Mexican house that doesn't make barbacoa. Like you just can't. It doesn't exist. And then sometimes I'll get bored. I'll be like, what are other ways to make barbacoa? So this summer I actually made ropa vieja, which is cute food, but it's basically the same thing.
Correct. You just it has to stew, and the flavors have to marinate. Oh my God, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, me too. But I love a slow cooker, a pot roast. Just give me all the slow cooked meats. That's me.
Yes.
Okay, Eritrea. Now I know where I have to go to get all these great foods, because you have a melting pot going on in your household.
Yeah, and I sometimes get bored. So over the summer I did this going around the world with food things. I was stuck in my house, and I haven't stuck for a while. So we made like all kinds of different countries and countries I've never been to. So I just like would Google them and then spend like a week looking up recipes, because Earth is closed. So yeah, it's fun.
Well, I know that the next time we have a live like this, possibly we're gonna do it from Eritrea's house, eating food that she
yes.
They got a date.
Yes.
And we have another question. Actually, this is, I think, our last question. And this is for Robert. And someone wants to know, do you think about the impact your recipes will have on your own blood sugar while writing them for your cookbooks?
Absolutely. I mean, quite honestly, selfishly, I do think of that. And I think of the flavors that I really like. And then half the fun is trying to figure out a recipe to make it diabetic friendly and healthy and delicious. And I want people to eat my recipes and say, this is not a diabetic friendly recipe. This just tastes too good, you know? So yeah, I do think about that a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can personally attest to Robert's cooking, phenomenal. He made an amazing, like, sugar-free lemon bar, and I could not believe there wasn't any sugar in that or any added sugar. It was just
Wow.
fantastic.
You're too kind. You're way too kind.
Wow.
And I can't believe it. It's been like an hour already, and we're coming up on time. So, any last remarks from any of you on food, culture, and diabetes?
Everything in moderation with the exception of cotton candy.
Okay.
I think what I would want people to know is that, like, you can eat things that you love and have great blood sugars and stay healthy and not have to just give up the things that are important to you in your diet and in your culture. And if anybody tells you that, like Lorena said, just eat them and it's fine.
100%.
Eritrea?
I think that, like Lorena and Mila said, it is important to eat the foods that you love, especially because they tie you to the people that you love. And if people that you do ask, if you ask somebody how to incorporate something into your diet and they don't think it's possible, then you're asking the wrong person and you need to ask somebody else. That person is inept to help you. Like I said before, I was a little kid when I was diagnosed. So we fought. My mom didn't speak any English, so she fought for those rights with our dietitian. And you should do that also. Don't let people disconnect you from your culture just because they want to say no.
Yeah. Lorena?
I think that if you go and see someone who says you can never eat this, you can never eat that, then that's probably not the right person that you want to work with. And then at the same time, I just feel that you should empower yourself and bring to the visit, to the consultation, or if you're doing telehealth, bring the foods that you like and bring the labels that you like or the recipes that you like. It's impossible for all of us to know every single food or how it's prepared. So bring the things that you like and ask, these are important to me. How can I just fit this into my meal plan?
Wow, thank you all for joining us tonight. This has been so much fun talking about just food and how it impacts us. And I would love for all of you to share where our audience can get in touch with you, where they can find you on social media or just like around online. Let's start with Robert.
HappyDiabetic.com. All my social links are on my page, my podcast link, link to some of the best cookbooks ever written. That's what my mother would say. So HappyDiabetic.com.
Mila?
And I'm at hangrywoman.com, and I'm the Hangry Woman all over the internet.
Eritrea?
I am at Eritrea with 3 A's, so Eritrea. You can also find me over at Diabetics Doing Things on Instagram. Yeah, message us, watch our stuff.
All right, and Lorena?
You can find me on Instagram at Diabetes and Nutrition. My website is lorenadrago.com, and on Facebook I have a Facebook group which is also Diabetes and Nutrition.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone on Facebook who's been watching us. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to kick it over to the amazing Jordan Dakin to close us out. Jordan?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tiara. And thank you to all of you. What an amazing group. I am like so inspired right now. And that conversation was just incredible. I had so much fun watching. Thank you to everyone else who watched and asked questions. And thank you again to those who made this possible. You know, September Summits are supported by the JDRF Beyond Type 1 Alliance and sponsored by One Drop, Roche Diabetes Care, and Xeris Pharmaceuticals. We hope you'll join us next week. We're going to be talking racial and ethnic disparities in diabetes care with another incredible group. So please come next week. We'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.